Thank you for tuning in for this word of encouragement. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with a friend. Enjoy. Before I say what I want to say today, I want to make it very clear that I do not intend to make light of the reality of pain and suffering. It's very real. I do not intend to downplay the circumstances, the situations, the challenges of life that we all go through. It's very real. Pain is real, suffering is real. And sometimes there are seasons where we go through necessary seasons of grief and mourning. Sometimes it's necessary. But there are other times when it's of absolute importance that you and I get up and get moving. That we get up and get moving. So what I want to say to you today, the message that I have for you today is this: stop crying and get moving. Stop crying and get moving. Once again, I say, it is not the intention to make light of your suffering. The intention is not to make light of your pain. The intention is not to make light of your situation. We go through very challenging things. We go through very, very serious obstacles. And the intention this morning, today, whatever time you are listening to this, it is not to make light of what you're going through. As real as it is, there is also a real need most often for us to get up and get moving, for us to stop crying and get moving. I'll say it to you like this: if crying worked, we would all do it, and none of us would have problems. If crying was a great solution to all of your problems, if crying was a great solution to all of your challenges, we would all do it, and none of us would ever have any real problems. But it's not. It's not. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Sometimes we cry because it just hurts so much. Sometimes we cry because it's unbearable. But when it's all said and done, there is a need to get up and get moving. To get up and get moving. To do what needs to be done. To carry out what needs to be carried out. To see the mission through. There is a need for us to get up and to stop crying. I'll say it to you like this: I do not believe that pity, that self-pity, is what moves the heart of God. Self-pity is not what moves the heart of God. Right? Feeling sorry for yourself is not what moves the heart of God. Complaining is not what moves the hand and the heart of God. It is not what commands God's blessing. It is when you and I get up and we get moving in faith. It is when you and I decide that we no longer belong here, that I need to get to where God is trying to take me, that we get to see the power of God. See, we got into this global pandemic last year, in 2020 for most of the world. And when we got into this global pandemic, what happened was there were people who got into it and were hit so hard, and to this day, 2 years later, are still crying. There are people who were hit so hard that 2 years later are still crying. There are people who lost their jobs 2 years ago and they have not made a single move. They have not made a single move. They went into depression and sat right there. There are people on the other side who find themselves prospering in this time, who find themselves moving in this time, who find themselves seeing the grace and the favor of God in this time, who find themselves living under the blessing of God even in this time, even in the middle of a pandemic. And that is because, as I say to you today, friends, hear me out, there is a need for you to get up and get moving. There is a need for you to move forward. There is a need for you to act. There is a need for you to work. There is a need for you to do what needs to be done in order for you to not remain where you are. Get up and get moving. Get up and go. I want to share with you a story from the Bible in Exodus 14. At this particular part of their journey, the Israelites find themselves between a rock and a hard place. See, they're coming from Egypt. They are coming from Egypt, where they had been in captivity. The Israelites have been in captivity. They have been slaves to the Egyptians. And so now God decides to raise a man called Moses. And he says, Moses, I'm going to use you. I am going to use you to deliver my people. So I want you to get up. I want you to go to Pharaoh and tell him to let my people go. And don't worry about it, Moses. I'm going to be with you. Don't worry about what will happen. Oh, but God, what should I say to him? Just tell him I am. Oh, but God, I can hardly speak. I can hardly speak. God, I cannot. Go do what I told you to do. And so Moses finds himself standing in front of Pharaoh, and he says to Pharaoh, you need to let God's people go. You need to let God's people go. The time is now for you to release God's people. And Pharaoh, of course, resists. The Bible says that God hardened his heart in order to demonstrate his power. And so Pharaoh is now refusing to let the people go. And there is one happening after another, happening after another, after another, after another, just tragedies and plagues in order to demonstrate God's power until Pharaoh says, I want nothing to do with these people. Let them go. Pharaoh lets them go, and as he lets them go, they go off into the wilderness, and as they start on their journey, at some point, Pharaoh suddenly comes to himself and he says, I just made a mistake. I just made a mistake. How are we going to get everything done if we let go of the people who used to do all the labor? How are we going to achieve anything? How are we going to build anything if we let go of our slaves? And so he starts going after the Israelites. The Bible says he chases them down. And then we catch it over here in verse 10 of chapter 14. It says this. It says, as Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. They were terrified and cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us out to the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians? And they say, it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert. They say it would have been better for us to have served the Egyptians and just live where we were with our children from one generation to another generation, to another generation, to another generation, and it just carries on, and there's no change, there is no revolution, there is nothing that changes in our family line, there is nothing that happens amongst our people. Would have been better for us to stay there than to endure this moment here, because they are so sure that they would die. They were so sure that they would not make it out. Can I ask you a question? Have you ever been at a place in your life where you were faced with a situation that you surely felt like you were not going to make it out of? Have you ever been in that position? Have you ever been in a position where you watch them taking the car, and then you watch them take the house, and as you're sitting there, you watch your children be hopeless. You watch your children wondering, what are we going to do? Where are we going to live? What's going to happen? Have you ever been in a situation, in a moment, in such a predicament that you wonder, am I really going to make it out? The Israelites were so sure that they were not going to make it out. They were so sure. They had their back against the wall. On one side, it was a rock, and on the other side, it was a hard place. On one side, it was the sea, and on one side was their enemies coming at them. And it seemed like there was no way out. It seemed like there was no way of surviving this. There was no way of going through to the other side. There was no way of us making it out alive. See, I've had so many of these moments. I have had so many of these moments where I thought to myself, there's just no way. There is just no way. I don't know if I will make it out. I don't know if I will live. I don't know if I will survive. I don't know if I will get to where God is taking me. But He has a way always. He has a way always, right? And very often the mistake that we make is that our response to these situations, our response to these tragedies, our response when our back is against the wall and when we're in between the rock and a hard place, our response always is to cry, to begin to moan, to begin to complain, to begin to talk about, oh, the good old days. Oh, I never should have done this. I never should have set out. I never should have pursued God's calling for my life. I really, honestly, I never should have concerned myself with the purpose of God for my life, because it's hard. I never should have concerned myself with the will of God. It's very difficult. I never should have done this. I never should have been here. I shouldn't be here right now. I'd like to go back, if that's okay, please. If that's okay, I'd like to go back to what it was. I like to go back. See, that relationship was bad, but can I go back, please? See, that situation was not ideal, but can I go back there, please? Because this here is way too much. What I'm dealing with looks like it will take my life. And so the Israelites stand there and they cry out to their leader, Moses. They say, Moses, you shouldn't have brought us here. Should have never set out. What do you mean you should have never set out? What do you mean it was better to be a slave? What do you mean that the old days were better than this? But look at Moses' response, right? Moses responds to them, and it says, Moses answered the people, do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance of the Lord. Right? He says, the Lord will bring you today. He says, stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still. I love the response of Moses. I love his response. He says to them, guys, you just need to be calm. You just need to be calm. You need to be still. Be still, and you will see the deliverance of the Lord. You will see the salvation of the Lord today. If you would only be calm, if you would only trust them, you would get to see the salvation of the Lord. So Moses clearly knows something. Moses clearly knows something. But there's something very interesting, because it seems as though in the writing of this chapter, there is a verse that is missing, right? It seems as though there's a verse that is missing, and I'll show you what I'm talking about, because that's what Moses says, right? He says that to the people. He says to the people, just be calm. The people are crying, the people are complaining, the people are moaning, and he says, just be calm. Trust God. God will save you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The troubles you see today, you will never ever see again. You're gonna be okay. And it seems fair to assume that there's a verse over here that we don't get to read, that we don't get to see, because verse 15 says, then the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? The Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? But the previous verse just said, Moses said to the people, the Lord will fight for you today. You need only to be still. And in the next verse, God says to Moses, who just said what he said, Moses, why are you crying out to me? Why are you crying? Why are you? Seems like a hard question to ask somebody who's in a bad place, isn't it? Seems like a hard question to ask somebody who is in quite a predicament. Seems like a hard question to ask somebody who just lost their job. To ask somebody who was having a hard time with their children. When somebody feels like their back is against the wall, when somebody feels like giving up because they've been looking for a job for a long time, when somebody feels like they are too far gone, the mistakes they've made, it is crushing. It is hopeless. Seems like a weird question to ask them. Seems like a really weird question. Why am I crying? Why am I crying? Well, I can tell you. How much time do you have? How much time do you have? So let me tell you, right? Of all people, I don't know why God chose me to raise a child who has special needs. I'm struggling. It's very, very difficult. Of all people, I don't know why God chose me to carry this burden, to carry this load, to deal with my parents who are this way, to deal with a family that is like this. Of all people, I don't know why me. I've been a graduate for 6 years and I still haven't found the job that I was looking for. I just got fired. My kids are hungry. I'm hungry. I don't know how I'm going to get by. I don't know how I will do what I need to do. The bank keeps on calling me. People that I owe keep on calling me. So what do you mean, why am I crying, God? God, I don't understand. What kind of question is that? Why am I crying? Surely you see why I'm crying. Surely you see my situation, God. Surely you see my predicament. Surely you see where I am. Surely you can see that I'm struggling to make ends meet. Surely, God, you can see that I'm having a hard go at it. Life is hard. That's why I'm crying. That's why I'm crying every single day. Life is not fair. Life is not easy at all. It is very, very difficult. That is why I'm crying. What do you mean, why am I crying? God says, Moses, why are you crying out to me? And then he says this, and this is what I want our faith to hinge on today. It says, he says, tell the Israelites to move on. Tell the Israelites to move on. It says, raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. It says, I want you to raise your hand. I want you to stretch your hand out. I want you to divide the sea. Tell the people to get moving. Tell the people to move on. As you are sitting there, I don't know what you need in order to move on. If it's counseling you need, go for counseling so that you can move on. If it's therapy you need, go for therapy so that you can move on. Whatever it is, move on. Begin to hustle. Begin to work. Begin to pray. Begin to do what it is that you need to do. But whatever you do, it is very important that you move on. Move on. See, sitting right there is not going to make a difference. Let me put it to you this way. It doesn't matter. It really does not matter how wide God opens the sea. He can split the sea before you and leave it just like that. If you do not move on, you will stay right there. And all of your problems, all of your enemies will overtake you and it will crush you. See, the Israelites could sit right there. Why didn't God do this? Why didn't God do this? Why didn't God do this? God, would you do this? God, please take away my problems. No, move on. Get up and get moving. Get up and get moving. And there are those of us who are sitting right now. We went into this global pandemic and it hit you so hard. And you have been sitting in the same place. You have been crying over and over and over again. You have been giving out the same cry, the same complaints, the same whispers over and over again. And so I say to you today, get up and get moving. Stop crying and get moving. Stop crying and get moving, so that you would get to see the deliverance of the Lord, so that you would get to see the work of the Lord. You will never know what it's like to walk through the seas on dry land if you don't move. You will never know what it's like to be rescued by God in such a miraculous way if you do not move. If you decide to sit right there, if you decide to solicit as much pity as you can from everybody, you won't. So get up and get moving. Get up and go from where you are to where you need to be. And I promise you, it is as you step, it is as you move, it is as you walk, It is as you do whatever it is that you need to do that you get to see the deliverance of the Lord. See, I don't know what it is that you need to do. I don't know what it is. See, like I said, for some of you, it is so severe, it's pain that is so severe that you actually need to sit down with a professional, to sit down with a counselor and actually work through some issues. For some of you, it's just that you need to get up and get to knocking on doors again, just to get to knocking on doors again. And don't give up. For some of you, it means you need to sit down and drop another proposal after you got rejected. Many, many different solutions to this, but I say to you, whatever you do, make sure that you are moving. Whatever you do, make sure that you don't sit down and feel sorry for yourself until Jesus comes back. Get up and get moving. And as you do, you will see the deliverance. You will see the salvation of the Lord for you and for your family. Hey family, thank you so much for watching this video, and listen, there is so much more on this page for you to enjoy, so much more inspiring and encouraging content. So go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure that you have liked this video, leave a positive comment if you enjoyed it, and most importantly, hit the notification bell so that you stay updated on everything that comes from this platform. And what I want you to do right now is go ahead and share the video with a friend, share the video with a family member, anybody that you can think about. Go ahead and share the video with them, because I promise you it might be the very thing that they need to hear today.